So in 2026, we finally went back to the moon. First time in more than half a century. But the real story of Artemis II, it's not just about the four astronauts. It's actually a tale of two different brains. One, of course, is human. The other, it's artificial. And get this, their partnership was literally the only thing that prevented a historic triumph from turning into an absolute catastrophe. Okay, so picture this. It's just a few weeks before launch. Commander Reed Wiseman gets up in front of everybody and says, the vehicle was ready, the team was ready, the four of them were ready to go. Total test pilot confidence. The message was crystal clear. We are a go. But, and this is the absolutely wild part, he said that knowing the heat shield had a major documented flaw. We're talking about the single most important piece of gear for getting home safely, and they knew it was flawed. And NASA had basically decided they weren't going to fix it. That's where this story really kicks off. Which brings us right to our first section. I'm calling it a flawed masterpiece because, well, that's exactly what the Orion spacecraft was. A technological marvel with a potentially fatal secret. So here's what happened. After the test flight, Artemis I came back to Earth. The engineers took one look at it and were just horrified. The heat shield is supposed to burn away nice and evenly, right? Nope. This one had cracked in more than 100 spots and had literally broken off in chunks. They figured out the cause. Hot gases were getting trapped underneath and, well, blowing the shield apart from the inside. To fix it properly, that would have meant an 18-month delay, and NASA just did not have that kind of time. They had to make a choice. Fly with the flaw? So while the human engineers are on the ground wrestling with this very real, very physical problem, the mission's other brain was getting ready to go. I'm talking about the powerful AI that was basically running the entire Orion spacecraft. You can really think of this AI as the fifth crew member. I mean, it handled the entire launch countdown all by itself. And out in deep space, GPS is totally useless. So the AI navigated by sight, literally looking at the Earth and Moon, comparing them to star maps to figure out exactly where they were, all while constantly monitoring life support, tweaking the flight path, and get this, even predicting when parts might fail before it happened. Want to get a sense of just how powerful this thing was? Lockheed Martin did the math. The AI could do work in one single hour that would take a human engineer 240 years. Let that sink in for a second. That's the kind of brainpower you absolutely need when you're that far from home. Okay, so the AI has the digital world completely under control. But back on Earth, the engineers are staring at this very, very analog problem. How in the world do you fix a broken heat shield without actually replacing it? And this, my friends, is where our second brain, good old-fashioned human ingenuity, steps up to the plate. And here's the truly incredible irony of the whole situation. The original material they used back in the Apollo days, in the 60s, it was designed to be a little bit permeable, a little breathable, so those hot gases could escape. And it worked like a charm, no failures. But the new, better version for Artemis? Well, it was too perfect. It sealed everything in so tightly that it trapped the gas, creating the exact problem they were trying to solve. Isn't that something? Progress literally created the flaw. So what was the fix? Well, it wasn't some fancy algorithm. It was pure, old-school, roll-up-your-sleeves engineering. They fired up these massive arc jets to blast samples with insane amounts of heat. They ran laser tests. They even studied the actual charred bits and pieces they recovered from the first mission. And their solution? It wasn't a new part. It was a new idea. A totally different flight path for coming home. And this is where it gets really clever, because the fix was the last thing you'd expect. Instead of trying to keep the shield cooler, their plan was to keep it hotter for longer, but in a really controlled way. Why? Because that sustained heat would actually help the material breathe again, letting those dangerous trapped gases vent safely. Just a brilliant, brilliant solution that only a human mind could have come up with.
And all of this, it all comes down to this one moment. The mission's climax, 13 minutes of pure fire. This is where the human plan and the AI's perfect execution both go on trial.
So the day comes. The Orion capsule hits the top of the atmosphere, and it's not just entering, it's slamming into it at almost 40,000 kilometers per hour. Just unbelievably fast. At that speed, the friction is just incredible. The temperature on that flawed heat shield shoots up to over 2,700 degrees Celsius. To put that in perspective, that is about half as hot as the surface of the sun. And then, silence. for 6 straight minutes. The capsule is wrapped in a sheath of superheated plasma, and it cuts off all communication. Total radio blackout. On the ground, in orbit, nobody knows. Is the human fix working? Is the AI flying it right? Nothing. Just waiting. Finally, you hear a crackle over the comms. Everyone in mission control is just holding their breath, and the flight director reads out the final numbers. The AI had nailed it. It flew that custom, human-designed flight path with just breathtaking precision. The crew was safe, the tale of two brains worked. So, the human-AI partnership totally conquered the challenge of re-entry. But you have to remember, the heat shield was a problem they could see. They could test it, they could analyze it. As we look ahead to Mars, there's another threat out there. One that's way more insidious because it's completely invisible. Yeah, I'm talking about space radiation. It's one of the biggest dangers for any astronaut. And unlike a physical problem like a heat shield, you can't see it, you can't stick it in a wind tunnel, and it's not just a danger for 13 minutes. It's affecting the crew every single second they're out there. And the damage it does to the human body, it's really staggering. We're talking about higher risks for cancer, for heart disease, even damage to your brain and nervous system. It's just a constant barrage of particles that shreds your DNA and hammers your immune system. Figuring out how to deal with this, that's going to be the next huge test for that human-AI partnership on the road to Mars. So, let's bring it all together. What does the success of Artemis II really mean? What did this amazing tale of two brains actually teach us about where we're headed next? Well, for one thing, it proves that this model, this partnership, actually works. And because it works, it unlocks this incredible roadmap for the future. We're talking Artemis III landing on the moon in mid-2027. Then Artemis IV, targeting the lunar South Pole. And all of that is building towards the big one, the start of a permanent base on the moon by 2032. I think the biggest lesson from all of this is pretty clear. The future of pushing the boundaries, it doesn't belong to just AI. And it doesn't belong to just human genius either. It belongs to the space where they meet. You had one brain that flew the mission with a precision no human ever could, and you had another that solved a physical puzzle with pure, creative, out-of-the-box thinking. Look, Artemis II proved that AI isn't just a tool, it's our co-pilot to the stars. It makes us better, safer, and able to do things we couldn't dream of before. So I'll leave you with this thought. As this incredible partnership helps us reach for other worlds, what can it teach us about fixing some of the biggest challenges we've got right here at home?